The eastern counting hall had 3 doors, and Mara had counted them 5 times. It was the kind of counting you did when you were the 7th in a line of 17, and the only thing keeping you upright was the small, repeated proof that the room had not yet sealed itself around you. 7 left, then 6, then the door on the south wall, open. The door on the east, open. The brass-bound back door behind the registrar's stand, closed but not locked. She knew because the registrar had unlocked it twice already in the hour she had been waiting, both times to let in someone in a tear-stitched coat. She would not be using the brass door. She knew that too. She had been told what the brass door was for. The auctioneer was cheerful, which was the first thing she had noticed about him. A Tier 3 functionary. Soft-handed, clean linen, a clipboard against his hip. He moved through the morning's lots the way a vendor moves through overripe fruit at the end of market day, calling out 5 years off this man's life, the bottom octave from this woman's voice, a child's first language returned to nothing. All in the same tidy enthusiasm, as if the next bidder might think the apricots were turning if he let his pitch fall. The crowd cheered on cue. The Eastern Counting Hall had a contract with the city for spectacle, and the city had a contract with itself to look like a place that did not eat its own. The contracts were enforceable. The cheering was the enforcement. Mara stood near the back and breathed the way her father had taught her. Slow in, slow out, the way you breathe to keep your hands still on a knife. She had 7 years to sell. She had been adding them up since before she was old enough to understand what the word future meant. 7 came from a sum she had done over and over at her kitchen table in the dark, her age, less the years she could afford to keep, less the years the writ of inheritance from house near would consume even if she didn't lift a finger. 7 was what was left. 7 was, in a room that called debt recoverable value, the price of a license to descend. She had not told her mother the number. Her mother would have made a face. Her mother made faces about things she could not change, which is a habit a bound woman picks up around her 30th year and keeps for the rest of them.
Tomas is sick.
She wasn't letting herself think about it while she counted doors.
He had been a child who liked to copy sentences.
Just the shapes of them, the way they sat on a page, the particular gravity.
He still did.
She thought, through coughing fits now, in a pencil, because the warden's office had taken his pen as part of a settlement she hadn't known about until the form arrived. A settlement. As if he had agreed to something. As if a boy who liked the shape of sentences had sat across a table from someone in clean linen and decided, yes, the pen seems fair. What they had taken, the form said ambient interest, like it was weather, like it was the kind of thing that simply accumulated without anyone being responsible for it, was the air inside his chest. That was what ambient meant. She had worked it out over the 3 weeks she'd been carrying the form. Ambient, present everywhere, accruing everywhere. A 13-year-old boy could be charged for atmospheric debt, made quieter, made shorter of breath, and the form had no boxes, just a footer in the same restful font the auctioneer used to call his lots. This is not a punishment.
As if saying so meant anything. As if the font decided.
She'd stopped reading it 3 weeks ago. She had not stopped carrying it.
Default,
The auctioneer said. The room did not, at first, react. It was a minor word in a minor key. But Mara had been counting doors. She had been paying attention, and so she watched what happened next. And she would not stop watching. Because she could not. Because the room was teaching her something the form had not. The man was 4 ahead of her in the line. He was thin and tier 5 and roughly her father's age, and he was wearing a scarf his daughter had probably knitted, badly, since the stitches went in different directions, and he was not screaming. He was, in fact, halfway through the polite, introductory sentence the registrars asked of every entrant. "Sir, my name is, my contract reference is, my collateral is..." And then a clerk leaned forward to say something quietly in his ear, and his sentence stopped at "my," because somewhere between his teeth and the air, the rest of it had been quietly removed. The clerk did not raise her voice. The auctioneer did not stop smiling. The man's mouth moved, and Mara watched it work the shape of words that did not arrive.
His voice.
The room said in a small, polite way she would later remember as the first voice of the ledger had been recovered. Recovered. As if he had only set it down. Then his name went. She saw it go. That was the worst of it, later, when she tried to tell Thomas what had happened. Not that the system had taken something, but that she had been able to see what the system had taken, the way you see a lamp in a window across a courtyard go out. The man's name had been Aaron Vale. She knew this because the registrar had been speaking it at the moment of recovery, and the air around the registrar's mouth finished the syllables. Then Aaron Vale was gone from the registrar's mouth. Then he was gone from the air. Then... And Thomas would not believe her when she tried to tell him, because Thomas did not yet understand that the city had decided to let her see. Then Aaron Vale was gone from the room's memory, in the cleanest, kindest of ways. The people in front of her stopped looking at the man. They simply did not know there was a man to look at. The registrar made a small mark in her ledger. The auctioneer called the next lot. She did not look down at her hands. They were shaking, and looking down at shaking hands was the kind of thing that made a Tier 3 functionary delay your form and ask you gently if you were sure. She was not sure. She was not, at any point in the next 10 minutes, going to be sure. She was going through with it anyway.
"Mara Quill,"
he called. She walked the 7 steps. She was, she discovered, still able to feel her teeth. That surprised her. By the time she signed, she could not. The auctioneer was very gentle about the signing. Tier 3 functionaries are trained to be gentle about signings. They are not trained to be gentle about the rest of it. The gentleness is the only part where the city has bothered to invest.
7 years,
he said, smiling.
On account of one Thomas Quill. Maturity, indefinite. Collateral form.
Years of life.
And the descent license follows on success of the entry.
His pen ticked the box.
Welcome to the runner program, Miss Quill.
Thank you,
she said, because someone had to say something, and the man in front of her had been 4 ahead of her in the line, and she would not let his silence finish in her mouth.
Collateral accepted,
said something in the wall beside the auctioneer that was not the auctioneer. She had not heard the wall speak before. The auctioneer did not seem to notice he had been answered. He stamped her form. He gestured politely to the brass-bound back door, which, it turned out, was hers. She had been told the brass door went to a stair. She had been told a great many things about the descent, all of them by people who had not made it. The brass door opened against the inside of her hand more easily than she had expected. Behind it, a stair. Stone, narrow, lit from below by something she could not see. She put her free hand against the wall, because her hand wanted somewhere to be, and the wall was cold in a way she had not expected. Not the cold of stone, but the cold of paper, the cold of a contract held in a clean room.
The ledger.
Without yet knowing the word, the way you think a stranger's name a beat before someone introduces them. It opened against the inside of her skull like a clean page held to a lamp.
Mara Quill, debt-bearing citizen. Unauthorized inheritance detected.
There was a long, polite pause. She would, all her life, remember as the most attentive silence the world had ever offered her.
Welcome back, auditor.
Mara, who had only been alive for one life that she could remember, stopped on the second stair. Light came up out of the dark below her in a steady, warm color. The color of a kitchen lamp at 6 in the evening, when someone you trusted had just come home. It was the worst thing she had ever seen. Behind her, the brass-bound door began, at the same patient pace as everything else in the Eastern Counting Hall, to close.